Hello friends! Today I want to show you how to make this easy fall door hanger. It's inexpensive and really packs a big punch. So let's get started. For this project you're going to need 3 of these leaf forms from Dollar Tree, some silk flowers, a pumpkin, which I got mine at Michael's, but you can certainly find those at Dollar Tree as well, and then some wreath embellishments of your choosing. Now you want to lay out your leaf forms in this fashion right here so that we can zip tie them together at these points. Now cut off those excess pieces from the zip ties. Now when you turn it over, you just want to make sure that you zip tied it enough to where it's nice and sturdy before attaching the pumpkin. This is the pumpkin that I chose to use. I got it last year from Michael's. And I don't have it on film, but you just cut the pumpkin there in half with an X-Acto knife. The way the pumpkins are put together, there is a seam. And if you just put that knife down between those seams, the pumpkin pretty much wants to separate on its own. So it's not very difficult to do. The color I chose was Apple Barrel's Antique White to paint my pumpkin. Now you could leave the pumpkin orange the way it is. You could paint it blue, that's a popular color. But however, just make sure that you make it match your decor in whatever colors that you want. After that first coat, I decided I wanted to paint the stem of the pumpkin. So I'm going to use Simply Acrylic in Brown from Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to touch that up with a little bit of Apple Barrel and Khaki. Now I'm applying the second coat onto the pumpkin. Just want to be sure that none of that original orange color is going to show through. Now I'm taking the brown paint from the stem and just mixing it into the antique white that I painted the pumpkin with. And I'm going to hit those indented areas on the pumpkin. I think this will just give it a little more dimension rather than the flat white paint. Now it's time to hit the highlights of that stem with the gold khaki color we chose from Apple Barrel. You just put some on your brush, wipe most of it off, and then you hit those highlighted areas that are sticking up on the stem. This will give the stem some dimension. Now at this point, I'm happy with the way the pumpkin looks. I like the dimension in the painting and the stem. So the final thing I want to do is cover the whole pumpkin with some matte Mod Podge. Now you want to make sure that the Mod Podge dries completely because we're going to be touching the pumpkin quite a bit for the rest of this project. So here I'm using the heat gun to make sure that I get that Mod Podge nice and dry. Now I've placed the pumpkin onto the leaf forms, and I'm using a sharp pair of scissors just to mark where the metal of the leaf touches the pumpkin. And I did mark 4 places, 2 on each side. And just to make those holes a little bit bigger, I'm using my heat tool to put down in the hole. That way we'll be able to get the zip tie through those holes fairly easy. Now you take your zip ties and attach the pumpkin to those leaf forms in the 4 different areas. Now once you have the pumpkin secured with the zip ties in those 4 holes, you want to spin the zip ties around to the back so your pumpkin will lay flat against your door. And then you want to remove those excess pieces of the ties. So there you have it. It's pretty sturdy. Those zip ties are going to hold it in place very well. And now it's time for the fun part, applying our flowers. Now I like to lay the project out and place the flowers where I think I'm going to like them before I actually put anything on permanently. So I'll place everything, make sure I like the way it looks, then I'll remove the items and either use a glue gun to reattach them or floral wire. But then that way I can kind of see what it's going to look like before I actually start making things permanent. So here's my photo of the completed project. I'm really happy with it, but you'll notice that the pumpkin was cut in half, which means it would not stand up on its own. But the way those leaves are positioned, it allows you to use this craft as a tabletop decoration, or it's perfectly flat on the back and you can use it as a door hanger. If you enjoyed this video, I'd like to invite you to check out all of the social media platforms that we have under Charming Southern Sisters. We'd love to have you join us so we can share all of our creative ideas with you. Besides, when we're together, it's always a party. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, and until next time, so long.